There's really no worse feeling than wanting to do something and not being able to, right? Missing an interrupt because you were slow, pressing the wrong button by accident, popping something completely out of sync, or maybe worst case, having the opportunity for a 500 IQ, giga brain clutch save, but you've forgotten where you've keybound leap of faith, if it's even bound at all. In all seriousness, pressing buttons is literally how you play World of Warcraft and games. And just like other games, bad keybinds, bad controls can make it suck. But good controls can get you into that sense of flow. The line between you and your keyboard are blurred. You are one with your character, and playing is absolutely effortless. In fact, it is as effortless as introing today's sponsor. Brilliant! They are the best way to improve your prospects and develop yourself, especially in those lucrative fields. And it's all done via their fantastic site and app. What I've got for you today is real cool too. The first 200 of you to click my link will get 20% off. Now, today, we have got the brand new course from the amazing people at Kurzgesagt, where you're going to learn about the size of life, super volcanoes, black holes, and the limits of humanity. And that just sounds cool. And since they're teaching via interactive quizzes, backed up by the, as always, wonderful Kurzgesagt art style, this is just a fun way to learn and to re-engage your brain, because man, I don't know about you, but I find my brain is getting kind of crusty. They've chosen awesome topics too. I mean, come on, who did not get spooked by a super volcano documentary as a kid? And with the brilliant approach via the interactive quizzes, you don't just sit there and mindlessly sponge in facts to regurgitate into an exam. No, it's interactive. You actually get to fiddle around with sliders and demos, and that means that the topics actually click in your mind. So if you're thinking about your career, or you just want to have some fun, I mean, hey, there's high-paying fields like AI and computer science that Brilliant will help you with. Any of those things, visit brilliant.org/Bellular Warcraft today, and the first 200 to click my link will get 20% off their annual subscription.
You have to keep your reflexes so that when you want it, it's there. When you want to move, you're moving.
Now obviously martial arts and World of Warcraft are just a little bit different, but the idea is actually exactly the same. In the midst of combat, hesitation is defeat. You never want to miss a stun because it's in an awkward place, or have to think about where your defensive is because you don't press it enough. In the same vein, you want your regular button presses to be effortless and automatic. The state of flow that makes games feel amazing and turns hours into blissful minutes is hindered by your monkey brain coming in with things like thoughts, such as wondering where something is, looking at an action bar, or not being sure where a button is because you've never needed it before. So today you're going to learn the principles for keybinding to make World of Warcraft as fun to play as is possible. Principle 1. Bind everything you might need and know the binds. Don't just slap them around, put them on keys with intentionality. Doing this properly once may take an hour or more, but you will never have to think about it again. We've even created a spreadsheet that will help you build all this. Having your own logic to where things go will help you use them better, and it can be backed up with where they are on your action bars. Using Matt's layout in keybind groups as an example, core rotation is on the first bar and a half. Very common utility is in this section, other utility is in this block. Heals are here for non-healing specs, and potions are here in their own section so that he remembers to use them. The next principle, make sure they're in a place that's comfortable to press in combat. Your most pressed buttons should not have modifier keys. They should be close to your movement keys. You should avoid weird combos unless they're things you really know you can hit. Consistency and muscle memory is key. Making sure a physical key always does the same thing on every character. As an example, perhaps V always interrupts. Z is always a form of damage reduction. Share this where possible across specs and classes to maximize your muscle memory. Practice. Even when leveling and doing dungeons, try doing things like interrupting casts, stunning or slowing packs, and using defensives. Do this and don't stop, for we don't rise to the level of our expectations, rather we fall to the level of our training. So train. As an example, if you get used to soothing or trank-shotting an enraged mob in a +4 dungeon, you'll automatically do it in a +15. Your tank and your healer will love you for it. Okay, that is the TLDR version, but let's get specific on advice, tips, tricks, and what we have learned. Most of your time spent playing WoW is just moving around, so fix your movement binds. The most efficient way to move is to unbind your left and right turns and use strafe on those keys instead. This may take some getting used to, but strafing with A and D, if you're used to using WASD for your finger placement normally, is actually a lot faster. If you need to turn your character slightly, using the mouse is both speedier and more precise. As an example, the derogatory term keyboard turner, well, it kind of exists for a reason. The next is auto run. Even for short movements, it can just be better to hit auto run and then steer with your right mouse button. Why hold a button down when you can press one and lean back and relax instead? Binding this to perhaps a free mouse button or something near your existing movement keys is honestly an absolute game changer. I mean, numlock, who's going to be pressing that? Mounts are the same. With dragon riding, there are probably 3 or 4 mounts that you'll want to have bound. Your regular flying mount, your transmog yak, your brutosaur if you're the economically gifted sort, and now, of course, your new dragon. You can use modifiers and even a macro to put all of these on one button and then share it across all of your characters for an easy setup, just like I do in the Keybindings video. While Matt uses a macro for one of his mouse buttons, travel form / mount by default, dragon riding mount with shift, and transmog yak with control. Every button you press regularly needs to be fast, easy, and reliable to hit. For your core rotation, figure out what buttons you press a lot and make them real close to your movement keys. Now, this is not just your combat buttons. This is just anything you regularly need to press without lag time. So that means defensives, speed boosts, interrupts, stuns. If you need to press a button, but you feel like you have to stretch your finger or even move your hand, then that is just too far to be pressing regularly. You will strain yourself, or worse, hit the button too late. This whole area for keyboard is perfect. If you've got long fingers, or maybe a small keyboard, you might be able to handle just a bit further to the right. Any mouse buttons are obviously perfect too. So in general, the more you press a key, the closer you want that to be to here. Your less than 2-minute cooldowns are fine to go with a modifier, but if you're pressing something like Symbols of Death or Tiger's Fury, every 20 to 30 seconds, you'll want that thing handy. Another minor tip here is to make sure that buttons that need to be pressed together or in quick succession are on different fingers. As an example, pressing 1 then 3 splits the load between your fingers, but spamming both 1 and Q, that overuses your ring finger. A similar thing goes for cooldowns. While you can macro them together, sometimes you might want to press them separately. Our tip here is just to make sure that buttons aren't mutually exclusive. Say you want to press Avenging Wrath and Seraphim together. Well, you need to make sure that you can actually hit both of those at once. Having Avenging Wrath on Shift 1, but Seraphim on F, that would mean that you literally could not hit them both at the same time. But if you have these on Shift 1 and Shift 2, you could press them together or separately. Same with having anything that is off the global cooldown. Having your interrupt key be near your thumb and rotation on your fingers, that means that you can interrupt without having to delay your next attack. Another important tip is to just make sure you don't have something like your Hearthstone bound to a key like R or something, and this extends to your UI. Why have your character pane on C when that's one of the easiest binds that you can reach from WASD? Move that to somewhere like the Y key, or even Alt-C, and then use C and Shift-C for keybinds. The same goes for the defaults on the keys Z, X, and V. That's prime real estate, so don't let it go to waste. With that out of the way, utility and less used abilities can take the second most important keybinds. This would be the stuff that you only need in specific scenarios or are kind of unlikely for emergencies, like say Freezing Trap, Soothe, or the Evoker's new Time Spiral. They're still key abilities, but they're not quite as often pressed. This is where consistency becomes important, because if these abilities are not used that much, then you'll have less muscle memory built up for free. One of our tips is to use any leftover shift versions of your core abilities. As an example, if your V is an interrupt, then put an ability on Shift V that isn't an interrupt but can kind of do the same thing, like Typhoon, Bursting Shot, or Ring of Peace. That way, V means interrupt, right? No matter what. And trust us, having that automatic connection between the thing you want to do and the key you need to hit in your brain, that makes all the difference, especially if you play alts, and in this expansion, you probably will. Shift, Control, and Alt can of course make for good variants of the same close keys, and your mileage may vary, but remembering key combinations is generally easier than reaching across to keys that are on the other side of the keyboard, assuming of course you have a nice simple logic to how you approach modifier keys. Now, for these, remember that trinkets, potions, and occasionally engineer enchants, those should be bound in this category as well. There's no reason having a stack of potions in your bag or a speed boost on your belt if you can't readily use them when you need to. Now, there's also a lot of out-of-combat stuff you might want to press, like Hearthstones, toys, changing spec and loadout, and maybe even more. You can rotate those over to, like, weird combinations and unused leftover keybinds, or you could just put them in one bar, big bar to click. But honestly, I have a game changer. It's called Opie. It's an add-on. You can build these custom rings, or use a few of the amazing built-in rings as well. And these just give you a ton of miscellaneous stuff on a single button, and then you let your mouse do the rest. Or even, you can have a circle within a circle, where, like as an example, I navigate to my Hearthstone, and then I can switch between all of my different Hearthstones just with my scroll wheel. Now obviously this stuff is not responsive enough for combat, but for things like mounts, travel options, and your buff items like your flasks, it's an utter joy. And now, it's time for a bonus segment. Welcome to Hand Safety 101. I'm being serious. We are not getting any younger, especially, man, if you've been watching our channel for a few years, time's passed, hasn't it? And with a lot of the Dragonflight specs actually being fast, furious things, at the expansion launch, RSI is a real goddamn risk. I know of programmers that have had to, literally cost themselves so many thousands of pounds in not being able to code because their wrists are banjaxed. So we don't want you to have banjaxed wrists. So the above key binding tips should inherently reduce your risk. But the most important thing is to learn some gamer stretches. Seriously, they help, and also to take some breaks. But there's also some other stuff. We're all concerned about gamer posture, but with modern advice there, the idea is it's actually not to be in the perfect, position all of the time. That's not really what perfect posture is. The perfect posture, in a way, is your next posture. You'll have heard people say motion is lotion. TLDR, move around a lot, and this applies to your hands as well. Sitting there in gamer position without moving, or moving the same way all the time, will cause problems to your body. If you are playing for a long time then, try things like resting your arm on the desk, or moving your keyboard to a different angle. Right? Little things like that, just do them regularly. If your fingers get tired too quickly, maybe think about your key bindings again. And now, the final piece of the puzzle, and the tool that you can use to sort out your own keybinds. Here it is, we've made this quick little tool to help you plan your key bindings. It does default to Matt's key bindings because he set it up, but it will help you plan things out for your characters. There's a ton of advice, specific tips, including macros, so go through this or, whatever for the classes that you're playing, throw your own keybinds in, and you should be able to use this tool to just have a better time. And I heavily recommend using a tool because if you just click the quick keybinding tool and randomly click around your bars, it's very hard to keep all that info in your head and to apply all the principles evenly. The tool that we've made will just make that work for you. Okay. If you're still a bit undecided in things, you can check out our previous videos on choosing a main and how some classes are stacking up as of the pre-patch. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.